Tang tang namassami harisavanam patavim prabhasam tayan jaguntavi hare mudivasam yim brahmena vedagu sambudhame te me namo te chamam bhadayantu namantu buddhanam namantu bodhiyam namo vimutthanam namo vimuttiyam.
So my bowl serves as a camera stand, which is quite fabricated.
Did you have your meal for the day?
Yes, I did. Yeah, some generous souls helped me have an early meal. Yes, very good vegetarian Indian cuisine. So, and the server actually started speaking French to me, so I was really impressed. This Indian man who's just knew French, so that was good. I guess just to put you into a little context. So during, I think it was day 5 of the. I'll just change my view. There we go. Okay. So day 5 of the retreat, when Delson and I went to the Bodhi tree and had this idea to give a talk on the awakening, I gave the first part, which was how the Buddha went through the Mahasachaka Sutta when he's going through all the austerities with the breath and like even cutting out his breath, not breathing, and then cutting out food, and then becoming so emaciated. And he actually, after so long of doing that, and actually here in Bodhgaya, the cave is really nearby. It's 8 kilometers from here, where he did these 6 years of austerities. And actually we're supposed to go check it out tomorrow. And so he came to the conclusion that that was not the way to awakening, because he had been doing that for 6 years. And I also talked about, because it is linked to a previous sutta, which is the Noble Search in the Majjhima Nikaya. They're both in the Majjhima Nikaya. These are the 2 main suttas that talk about like his kind of breakthrough to awakening. And his previous teachers, basically Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta. So these 2 teachers who brought him all the way to the plane of nothingness and neither perception and non-perception. And so, but still he thought that doesn't lead to Nibbana, that doesn't lead to disenchantment. And even though he was asked to be a teacher in those traditions, he said no, because he wasn't feeling like this was what he was looking for. So, and then he did these 6 years of tapas, really harsh austerities, and realized this is not the path. And then realized, he remembered his youth when he was a young child, looking at the plowing festival, and his father, the king, was plowing the field, and everybody was there, and he was just alone under the tree. And he actually experienced jhana there for the first time, which is just that letting go of all sensory, worries, engagements, and then there's this nice, clear joy that arises from that. And and there's still some kind of very wholesome thinking that is possible at that point, but very lightly. So, and that came through with a lot of relief and a lot of joy. And then he remembers that, and then he says, well, could that be the way to awakening? Like, why am I afraid of that pleasure? Why am I afraid of this? And so he continues to think, and he's like, well, I'm not afraid of this. This is blameless. Like, this got nothing to do with sensual desires, selfishness, or anything. It's only actually it's blameless basically. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I've already spoken about it, and actually this is going to be day 5 of the retreat, and it's going to be posted relatively soon. So this is meant to be just the sequel to that, because Delson's part afterwards, so basically I took the first part and then he took the second part where he wanted to speak about dependent origination. So I suggested to maybe talk about the beginning of the Mahavagga, basically. So when he's going through after awakening. So basically, what his whole realization under like the seven following weeks, basically under each of the different trees. And so this is mainly found in the Mahavagga, and unfortunately, Delson's talk, I'm not sure why the recorder stopped recording. I think the data was full in the card, so we don't have that talk. But I'll be doing a little bit of a sequel to the first part that I started with, and this is in the Mahavagga, which is in the Vinaya Pitaka. And I'm not gonna only talk about dependent origination. It starts with that, but it flows into all the rest of the 7 weeks after his awakening, and depending on how the audience feels, either maybe a touch on the. I was thinking maybe we can include the Dhamma Chakkapavatana Sutta or not. So basically, we'll see. But this whole sequence for me is kind of like really the awakening of the Buddha. You know, when he's actually getting enlightened afterwards, and what he's going through, his realizations, and then he goes to teach his first students basically, and set the wheel of Dhamma rolling. I think that's kind of like the summary of everything around awakening. So, and I believe I'll begin, because this is found in the Vinaya Pitaka, but it's also found in the Udana. This is the opening lines of the Udana, and I have a translation on that. So I just need to find myself here. So can you still see me when I do this? Because
yes, you can
okay,
still see
good. Because I can't see you anymore. I'll try to maybe do half a screen. Good. Okay, so here we are, and the Buddha is awakened. Thus have I heard, once the awakened one was living at Uruvela on the bank of the river Naranjara, at the root of the tree of awakening, just after his complete awakening. On that occasion, the awakened one sat in one posture for 7 days, experiencing the bliss of freedom. So I always like to kind of underline that. He was just like blissing out after awakening. That's the first thing he's doing. Just saying. Then, when the week had passed, he emerged from this samadhi, and in the first part of the night paid careful attention to the arising chain of causality. When there is this, that comes to be. When this arises, the arising of that. There is the arising of that. That is, lack of discernment produces mental activity. Mental activities produce consciousness. Consciousness produce mind and body. Mind and body produce the 6 senses. The 6 senses produce contact. Contact produces experience. Experience produces wanting. Wanting produces attachment. Attachment produces a sense of self. The sense of self produces renewed existence. Renewed existence produces aging and death, and the manifestation of sorrow, sadness, trouble, depression, and anxiety. This is how this whole mass of trouble comes into being. Then, having understood this, the awakened one let out this joyful revelation. Surely, when the nature of things become clear to the devout, meditating Brahmana, at that time all doubts vanish as one understands nature, Dhamma, and its cause. And so, on a subsequent moment, then the awakened one, I have to adjust because it's not exactly the same translation. So, then the awakened one sat in one posture for 7 days, experiencing the bliss of freedom. Then, when the week had passed, he emerged from this samadhi and in the second part of the night paid careful attention to the regressing chain of causality. So basically the progressive chain is how the first two noble truths arise. And now this is how they cease. When there is not this, that does not come to be. When this ceases, that also ceases. That is, when lack of awareness ceases, mental activities cease. When mental activities cease, consciousness ceases. When consciousness ceases, mind and body cease. When mind and body cease, the sixth sense ceases. When the sixth sense ceases, contact ceases. When contact ceases, experience ceases. When experience ceases, wanting ceases. When wanting ceases, attachment ceases. It cannot be. When attachment ceases, the sense of self ceases. When the sense of self ceases, renewed existence ceases. When renewed existence ceases, aging and death ceases. And sorrow, sadness, trouble, depression, anxiety all cease. This is how this whole mass of trouble ceases. Then, having understood this, the awakened one let out this joyful revelation. Surely, when the nature of things become clear to the devout, meditating Brahmana, at that time all doubts vanish when one understands the breaking up of conditions. So how all of this whole chain is actually fabricated. It's just made up. These little sankharas, we're creating it. And that's what I was explaining on that retreat, was that a lot of the time we think that consciousness has all these activities in it. But actually, consciousness is actually only activities. It's not the activities are not within consciousness. It is consciousness that is fabricated through these activities. And when a person attains nibbana, for example, the definition is sabba sankhara samato. So that means all of these fabrications, they get tranquilized completely. So then there's no consciousness possible. There is only liberation.
So Bhante, is
Yes.
that removing the sankharas pretty much?
Well, it's removing them, but it's removing them through wisdom and tranquilizing them, seeing the unwholesome states of mind as creating more agitation and disturbances and dukkha, basically. And as we let go of those, there's only more and more liberation. And yes, so. And then when the chain, because it's not only like cut clear, like Nirodha Samapatti kind of thing. So it's when we actually, work at tranquilizing these unwholesome states, we actually, we give a lot less power to the whole chain. So the tanha, upadana, bhava, jati, all that is weakened greatly. And so that manifests in weaker sankharas too, because there's not a great sense of self. There's not like so much preoccupation about like me, myself, and I all the time. It's actually just light, generous, open. So yeah.
Sad.
let me go back to my little window. Again, on that occasion, the awakened one sat in one posture for 7 days, experiencing the bliss of freedom. Then when the week had passed, he emerged from this samadhi, and in the last part of the night, so it's the same, he's not sitting seven times in a row for 7 days, but it's just the same context, and it's the same night, basically. So the first part of the night, he contemplated the arising. So you can just picture him, like he's in the Nirodha Samapati, basically, and he's like, he is, but nobody actually attains Nirodha Samapati, but because no self can can even go there. But coming out of it, he sees how the chain arises. He sees how this consciousness is not eternal. It's not eternal. It's not everlasting. It's actually made up. It's fabricated. Sankara, sankata. So he's just coming out, and he's just seeing his own consciousness kind of firing up again, and seeing like how this whole process happens, and seeing in the second part of the night, looking at the cessation aspect of it, and then understanding, yes, when these things in order, when there's not this, then that doesn't come. Then when there's not that, then that doesn't come. When then there's not that, when then that cannot be. And so he's just basically being a scientist, just on his own mind. And this is the last part of the night when he's actually putting everything together and really understanding the whole thing. He emerged from this samadhi, and in the last part of the night paid careful attention to the arising and the ceasing of the chain of causality. When there is this, that comes to be. When this arises, there is the arising of that. When there is not this, that does not come to be. When this ceases, that also ceases. That is, lack of discernment produces mental activities. Mental activities produce consciousness. Consciousness produces mind and body. Mind and body produce the 6 senses. The 6 senses produce contact. Contact produces experience. Experience produces wanting. Wanting produces attachment. Attachment produces a sense of self. The sense of self produces renewed existence. Renewed existence produces aging and death and the manifestation of sorrow, sadness, trouble, depression, and anxiety. This is how this whole mass of trouble comes into being. With the complete calming and cessation of lacking awareness, mental activities cease. When mental activities cease, consciousness ceases. When consciousness ceases, mind and body cease. When mind and body cease, the 6 senses cease. When the 6 senses cease, contact cease. It just cannot be. When contact ceases, experience ceases. When experience ceases, wanting ceases. When wanting ceases, attachment ceases. When attachment ceases, the sense of self ceases. When the sense of self ceases, renewed existence ceases. When renewed existence ceases, aging and death cease. And sorrow, sadness, trouble, depression, and anxiety all cease. I think sometimes it's a little bit dark to contemplate dependent origination, but like just this last line, how amazing is that? When like you discover something that makes aging and death cease. How amazing is that? And sorrow, sadness, trouble, depression, anxiety, all of that gone. Can you imagine a mind that never has to experience any of that? That's pretty good.
Yes.
And we don't say anything about happiness, but like when all of that is gone, like what is left, you think? Such relief, and that was, a major theme that that came back in the retreat is like, like why do we do these practices, like these retreats and like deep practices, and wow, like so much relief that people are experiencing actually in their minds. It's just amazing. It's just their mind is just uplifted and happy. Then, having understood this, the awakened one let out this joyful revelation, and this is just the cherry on the cake. Surely when the nature of things become clear to the devoted meditating Brahmana, one stands shattering death and its troops like the sun lighting up the sky. So here is the Buddha actually becoming a Buddha. So here's the end of my translation, and I will be moving to the Vinaya. I mean, we could speak a little bit about dependent origination, but since I'd like to cover a little bit more of the whole story behind the Buddha's awakening, I'm not going to drag into it, but it's so profound just to contemplate. But really, when you look at it simply, it's simply a matter of like finding what is the support for the next thing, and how these things arise together, and how when there's no more lacking of awareness of any kind, when awareness has been just purified through just this letting go and upliftment of the mind, wholesome states, then these sankharas that arise, they are wholesome and they are very light. And so the whole chain that arises is, of course, there's a consciousness that arises, but that consciousness is not heavy. It's not very heavy, and so it's not super attached or personalizing name and form as much as it could be, for example, because consciousness supports basically nama rupa, this mind and body, which I call mind and body. So there's translated in many different ways. And then, without consciousness, there cannot be mind and body. It's like the Buddha says, it's like two stacks of kusa grass that are leaning against each other. If you take away one, the other one falls. So there cannot be body without consciousness, and there cannot be consciousness without the body. Without this, unless someone is arupa, the arupa realms, but mainly this is for the rupa realm, basically. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about nama rupa. And then how could the sense even come into being? Like, if there's no nama rupa, like this sense of like mind and matter, basically this sense of name and form, however we want to call it. The senses, they're just basically rooted in that. They are nothing but that. So, and then from there, if there's no sense, there cannot be any sense contact. That's just pretty plain simple. So that makes a lot of sense. And then from contact, then that's where we have some kind of experience, and that's where really the crux of the chain is, whether what we're gonna do with that experience will dictate how the mind will become, and if it will become heavier or lighter. So basically, and it's all conditioned. Even the path is conditioned. We're conditioning our minds all the time, but hopefully in a wholesome way, in a way that's wholesome and uplifting and beneficial for as many beings as possible, and which supports ourselves in the first place. So now I will be getting into so this was under on awakening. This is going for the Pabajavagga. And now I will be reading from, this is the older translation from I.B. Horner. She, I kind of like her translation actually, but yeah, it's, I just have to organize my, it's a bit of a new system here, so okay. Oh, so I can't do that. So this is at the goat herd's banyan tree. Now, at the beginning, we were under the Bo tree, the tree of awakening, and now he's under the goat herd's tree, the banyan tree. These crazy-looking trees with so many roots that are going all over the place, and the branches look like roots, and the roots look like branches. So,
Bhante, is that tree still there? Is it in Bodhgaya?
Actually, I don't think even even the Bodhi tree is not the original one. But
the location and the
yes, I haven't inspected the whole area because I saw the place where he was standing looking at the tree for 7 days unflinching. That I did see. But the banyan tree I didn't see. I mean, I think Bodhgaya right now is very different than what it was at that time, from what I can tell anyways. But I'm not a specialist either, so I would really have to, I really would have liked to go more actually to the temple because I've only been teaching the retreat, so I haven't been able to really get around, and maybe tomorrow check out the cave where he did all of his asceticism, but that's still up in the air, we don't know. So then, and she uses the word Lord, so of course bear with me. Then the Lord, having emerged from that contemplation at the end of 7 days, approached the goat herd's banyan tree from the foot of the tree of awakening. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different here. So having approached, he sat cross-legged in one posture for 7 days at the foot of the goat herd's banyan, experiencing the bliss of freedom. Then a certain Brahmin of the class, uttering the word Om, approached the Lord. Having approached, he exchanged greetings with the Lord, with the Blessed One. Having exchanged greetings of friendliness and courtesy, he stood at a respectful distance. As he was standing, that Brahmin spoke thus to the Blessed One. To what extent, good Gautama, does one become a Brahmin? And again, what are the things which make a Brahmin? Then the Blessed One, having understood this matter at that time, uttered this solemn utterance. That Brahmin who bars out evil things, not uttering the sound Om, with no impurity, curbed of self, master of the Vedas, who lives the Brahma-faring. This is the Brahmin who may rightly speak the Brahma speech, who has no blemishes anywhere in the world. And then moving on to the Muchalinda tree. Then the Lord, the Blessed One, at the end of 7 days, having emerged from that contemplation, approached the Muchalinda tree from the foot of the goat herd's banyan tree. Having approached, he sat cross-legged in one posture for 7 days at the foot of the Muchalinda, experiencing the bliss of freedom. Now at that time, a great storm arose out of due season, For 7 days there was rainy weather, cold winds, and overcast skies. Then Muchalinda, the serpent king, I said the tree, Muchalinda tree. Oh, I guess it was Muchalinda's tree.
Muchalinda snakes.
Yes, yes,
Well, I think.
yes.
His tree.
But they're actually talking about a tree here, but that's why I got confused. Then,
okay.
yes, I'm just picking up with my own story here. Then Muchalinda, the serpent king, having come forth from his own hunt, having encircled the Lord's body 7 times with its coils, having spread a great hood over his head, stood saying, "Let no cold annoy the Lord, let no heat annoy the Blessed One, let not the touch of flies, mosquitoes, wind and heat, or creeping things annoy the Blessed One." That's a pretty serviceable snake, I would say. Pretty nice. Then Muchalinda, the serpent king, at the end of those 7 days, having known that the sky was clear and without a cloud, having unwound his coils from the Blessed One's body, having given up his own form and assumed a youth's form, stood in front of the Blessed One, honoring the Blessed One with joined palms. Then the Blessed One, having understood this matter at that time, uttered this solemn utterance: "Happy is solitude, who glad at heart hath Dhamma learned and doth the vision see. Happy is the benignity towards the world which on no creature worked harm. Happy the absence of all lust. The ascent past and beyond the needs of sense desires. He who doth crush the great I am conceit, this truly, this is happiness supreme." So he's sharing with us a few glimpses of what he's experiencing. And I guess in the past verse, I could say that there's a whole chapter in the Dhammapada that talks about what the Buddha said that makes a real Brahmin. Because here being in India, actually the caste system is still very alive, even though it's kind of not, but it still is in people's minds. So people say it's not officially active, but it is really. People think about it, they know about it. So, and I had just some discussions with some people about that, about their own caste and things like that. So, and here it's really, you are born a Brahmin, so it's not something that you do. So that's why he's actually asking, like, what makes a Brahmin? What really is a Brahmin? Because in the usual tradition, you are born a Brahmin. You cannot become a Brahmin. That's impossible. So, and a Brahmin being like also a master of the Vedas and a Vedic priest or things like that. You could not just like become a Brahmin like that. You would have to be born in the right family, and it would have to be pure and all of that. So, so that's why it's a theme that comes back very often in the Dhammapada. There's a whole, and I think it's the biggest chapter actually, the Brahmanavagga, which is at the end, and it's the Buddha talking about what really makes a Brahmin, like a holy man, a holy woman, or a holy person, basically, not by birth or by family or by caste. Then the Rajayatana tree. Then the Blessed One, at the end of 7 days, having emerged from that contemplation, approached the Rajayatana tree from the foot of the Muchalinda. See there. Having approached, he sat cross-legged in one posture for 7 days at the foot of the Rajayatana, experiencing the bliss of freedom. Now at that time, the merchants Tapusa and Bhallika were going along the high road from Uppkala to that district. Then a devata who was a blood relation of the merchants, Tapusa and Balika, spoke thus to the merchants: "My good fellows, this blessed one, having just become wholly awakened, is staying at the foot of the Rajayatana tree. Go and serve that blessed one with barley gruel and honey balls, and this will be a blessing and happiness for you for a long time." Then the merchants Tapusa and Balika, taking barley gruel and honey balls, approached the Blessed One. Having greeted the Blessed One, they stood at a respectful distance. As they were standing at a respectful distance, the merchants spoke thus to the Blessed One: "Bhante, let the Blessed One receive our barley gruel and honey balls, that this may be a blessing and happiness for us for a long time." Then it occurred to the Blessed One: "Truth finders do not receive with their hands. Now with what shall I receive the barley gruel and honey balls?" Then the four great kings, knowing with their minds the reasoning of the Blessed One's mind, from the four quarters presented the Blessed One with 4 bowls made of rock crystal, saying: "Let Bhante, let the Blessed One receive the barley gruel and honey balls herein." The Blessed One received the barley gruel and honey balls in a new bowl made of rock crystal, and having received them, he partook of them. So that's how the Buddha got his bowl, basically. Supposedly from the 4 great kings of the 4 directions, with crystal, rock crystal bowls, and merging all of them into one so that he could have it, so that he could actually use just one. Then the merchants Tapusa and Balika, having found that the Blessed One had removed his hands from the bowl, having inclined their heads towards the Lord's feet, spoke thus to the Lord: We Bhante are those going to the Blessed One for refuge and to the Dhamma. Let the Blessed One accept us as lay disciples gone for refuge for life from this day forth. Thus these came to be the first lay disciples in the world, using the 2-word formula, because there was not Sangha at that point. So they only went to refuge to the Buddha and the Dhamma. And the Burmese say that Tapusa and Balika were Burmese. The Thais say they were Thais. So because it's understood that they were on their way to Suvarnabhumi, the Golden Land, which is Burma and Thailand. So basically, there's a little bit of a national argument here. Sri Lanka seems to stay clear out of that one because it's definitely in the north.
Thanks to the distance between the ocean.
Yes. There's other stories, but yes, definitely. So, and then the invitation from the Brahma, because the first thing that the Buddha realized was actually not necessarily to teach, because what he discovered was so profound and so hard to grasp for a lot of people, that he and his mind was really released. Like the last thing he would want to do is like try to cram things into his mind, or like try to like be something, or like when you go beyond becoming, then it's not really to be expected that you would look for something to do, really. So so somebody had to invite him, and who better than Brahma himself? So then the Blessed One, having emerged from that contemplation at the end of 7 days, approached the goat herd's banyan tree from the foot of the Rajayatana. Having approached, the Blessed One stayed there at the foot of the goat herd's banyan tree. Then as the Blessed One was meditating in seclusion, a reasoning arose in his mind, thus, this Dhamma won to by me is deep, difficult to see, difficult to understand, peaceful, excellent, beyond dialectic, subtle, intelligible to the learned. But this is a generation delighting in sensual pleasure, delighted by sensual pleasures, rejoicing in sensual pleasures, so that for a generation delighting in sensual pleasures, this were a matter difficult to see, that is to say, causal uprising by way of cause, dependent origination. This too were a matter very difficult to see, that is to say, the calming of all habitual tendencies, the renunciation of all attachments, the destruction of craving, dispassion, stopping, nibbana, etang santang, etang panidang, yaridang sabba sankara samato, sabuppadi patinissago, tanha kayo, niro, viraga nirodho nibbana. The classic definition of nibbana, basically. And here we find it very close, rooted in his awakening. And so if I were to teach Dhamma and others were not to understand me, this would be a weariness to me. This would be a vexation to me. I'm not sure if he would say a vexation, but definitely more like a burden. I don't think the Buddha would get vexed about something, but and further, these verses, not heard before in the past, occurred spontaneously to the Blessed One. This, that through many toils I've won, enough, why should I make it known? By folks with lust and hate consumed, this Dhamma is not understood. Leading on against the stream, subtle, deep, difficult to see, delicate, unseen 'twill be by patient slaves, cloaked in the murk of ignorance. In such wise as the Blessed One pondered, and his mind inclined to little effort and not to teach Dhamma. Then it occurred to Brahma Sahampati, knowing with his mind the reasoning in the Blessed One's mind. He thought, alas, the world is lost. Alas, the world is destroyed. Inasmuch as the mind of the truth finder, the perfected one, the fully awakened one, inclines to little effort and not to teach Dhamma. Then, as a strong man might stretch forth his bent arm, or might bend back his outstretched arm, even so did Brahma Sahampati, vanishing from the Brahma world, became manifest before the Blessed One. Then Brahma Sahampati, having arranged his upper robe over one shoulder, having stooped his right knee to the ground, having saluted the Lord with joined palms, spoke thus to the Lord. Bhante, let the Blessed One teach Dhamma. Let the welfarer teach Dhamma. There are beings with little dust in their eyes who, not hearing the Dhamma, are decaying. But if they are learners of Dhamma, they will grow. Thus spoke Brahma Sahampati, and having said this, he further spoke thus. There has appeared in Magadha before thee an unclean Dhamma by impure minds devised. Open this door of deathlessness, let them hear Dhamma awakened to by the stainless one. I have goosebumps just reading this, by the way. It's just such an amazing section.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say it's one of my favorite, but you already, that's kind of getting old. It's obviously one of my favorite. As on a crag, on the crest of a mountain standing, a man might watch the people far below. Even so do thou, O wisdom fair, ascending, O seer of all, the terraced heights of truth, look down from grief released. Look down from grief released upon the peoples sunken in grief, oppressed by birth and old age. Arise, you hero, conqueror in battle, you freed from death. Man, leader of the caravan, walk the world over, let the Blessed One teach Dhamma. They who learn will grow. When he had spoken thus, the Blessed One spoke thus to Brahma Sahampati. Brahma, it occurred to me this Dhamma penetrated by me is deep. And then he repeats the whole thing. And if I were to teach this and people would not understand, this would be troublesome. And further, Brahma, these verses not heard before in the past occurred spontaneously to me. This that through many toils I've won is not easy to see. And then again repeats the same thing. In such wise, Brahma, as I pondered, my mind inclined to little effort and not to teach the Dhamma. Then a second time did Brahma Sahampati speak thus to the Blessed One. Blessed One, let the Blessed One teach Dhamma. If they are learners of Dhamma, they will grow. Still repeating. And then a third time. So 3 times asking. Then the Blessed One, having understood Brahma's entreaty, and out of compassion for beings, surveyed the world with the eye of an awakened one. As the Blessed One was surveying the world, he saw beings with little dust in their eyes, with much dust in their eyes, with acute faculties, with dull faculties, of good dispositions and bad dispositions, docile or indocile, few seeing fear in sins and the worlds beyond. So few seeing fear in unwholesome actions, and few seeing the world beyond. Basically, so that's relating to the Iriotapa, basically this natural sense of this virtuous sense of wholesome sense of fear in doing wrong things, and he saw that some people had this, and another wrong view that is often clung to is that there is no world after, there is no life after this one. So that some people did think that their actions matter. So that's why the Buddha's teaching is all about karma. So that there wouldn't be another life after, or that actions didn't matter at all, then it would be a very nihilistic approach, and that is. But he saw that there was some goodness. He saw that some people were intent on good, even though they didn't always know how to do it, but they still were intent on it. Even as in a pond of blue lotuses, or in a pond of red lotuses, or in a pond of white lotuses, a few blue or red or white lotuses are born in the water, grow in the water, do not arise above the water, but thrive while altogether immersed. And a few blue, red, or white lotuses are born in the water, grow in the water, and reach to the surface of the water. A few blue or red or white lotuses are born in the water, grow in the water, and stand up arising out of the water, undefiled by the water. And that's one of the most beautiful simile to imagine a Buddha, basically. If you do a Buddha Anusati, is like this person who's just like transcended this world completely, like a lotus, like jutting out of the water kind of thing, like not even touched by any kind of droplets of water. He's just completely blooming above it, even though he came from that environment. So that's quite beautiful. Even so, the Blessed One, surveying the world with the eye of an awakened one, seeing beings with little dust in their eyes and with much dust in their eyes, seeing Brahma Sahampati, he addressed him with verses. Open for those who hear are the doors to the deathless. Let them renounce, let them show their faith. Thinking of useless fatigue, I have not preached Brahma, the sublime and excellent Dhamma to men. Then Brahma Sahampati, thinking the opportunity was made by me for the Blessed One to teach Dhamma, greeting the Blessed One, keeping his right side towards him, vanished then and there. So, and now, so he's wondering, who will he teach to? Because, I mean, who's going to understand this? And he needs some good any good teacher needs some really good first students close by, and close core students, because that's just the way that the teaching shines, I think, is by some people will be close and understand that teaching quite quickly, and so and that tells a lot when usually the people that are actually experiencing the teaching will be kind of like a kind of a testimony of the teaching itself. So even though he says he's fully awakened, like it happens later, not everybody believes him. So and so yeah, usually some people with really good karma will be close by. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, now to whom should I first teach Dhamma? Who will understand this Dhamma quickly? Then it occurred to the Blessed One, indeed this Alara, the Kalama, is learned, experienced, wise, and for a long time has had little dust in his eyes. Suppose I were to teach Dhamma first to Alara Kalama, he will understand this Dhamma quickly. So first he thinks about his two first teachers, which is another interesting point. He's not even thinking about the 5 ascetics first. He's thinking about his two first teachers, which taught him this one in particular, the plane of nothingness. But then an invisible Devata announced to the Lord, Bhante, Alara Kalama passed away 7 days ago. And the knowledge arose to the Blessed One that Alara Kalama had passed away 7 days ago. And that's funny because a lot of the time the Devas will tell the Buddha, and ironically he's also thinking that at the same time. So there will be 2 lines. There will be the Devatas told him, and then he had the knowledge also. So that's interesting, I always think. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, Alara the Kalama was of great intelligence if he had heard this Dhamma, he would have understood it quickly. And like Chandaratna Bhante was saying actually on this particular retreat, is that it's said that Alara Kalama, well, technically he was reborn in an Arupa Jhana. So he's actually, you can't reach him. Like there's no sense base, there's no like, anyways, that's what they say. There's still mind, so I guess he could maybe reach by mind, but so it's kind of like he's kind of like landlocked in his amazing Arupa state. Then
Mind
it
lock, Bhante.
yes,
Mind lock.
the mind luck, yes, yes, mind luck. There we go, good one. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, now to whom should I teach the Dhamma? Who will understand this Dhamma quickly? Then it occurred to the Blessed One, indeed this Uddaka Rama's son, Uddaka Ramaputta, is learned, experienced, wise, and for a long time has had little dust in his eyes. Suppose I were to teach Dhamma first to Uddaka Rama's son, he will understand this Dhamma quickly. But then an invisible Devata announced, oh, and it's invisible too, so it's announced to the Blessed One, Bhante, Uddaka Rama's son passed away last night. And the knowledge arose to the Lord that Uddaka Rama's son had passed away last night. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, Uddaka Rama's son was of great intelligence. If he had heard this Dhamma, he would have understood it quickly. See, we see here like all kinds of really interesting karmic link with his previous teacher, like 7 days he's passed, and now he's just passed on last night. I mean, these are kind of like really kind of interesting coincidences of karma that make him kind of put him in very special conditions again, where these great teachers are not there anymore. So then it occurred to the Lord, now to whom should I teach this Dhamma? Who will understand this Dhamma quickly? Then it occurred to the Lord, that group of 5 monks who waited on me when I was self-resolute in striving were very helpful. Suppose I were to teach Dhamma first to the group of 5 monks. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, but where is the group of 5 monks staying at present? Then the Blessed One with Deva vision, purified and surpassing that of men, saw the group of 5 monks staying near Benares at Izipatana in the Deer Park. This is where the previous retreat was held. Then the Lord, the Blessed One, having stayed at Uruvala for as long as he found suiting, set out on tour to Benares, so Varanasi. Upaka, a naked ascetic, saw the Blessed One going along the high road between Gaya and the Tree of Awakening. And seeing him, he spoke thus to the Blessed One, Your Reverence, your sense faculties are quite pure, your complexion very bright, very clear. On account of whom have you, your Reverence, gone forth? Or who is your teacher? Or whose Dhamma do you profess? When this had been said, the Blessed One addressed Upaka, the naked ascetic, in verses, Victorious over all, omniscient am I. Among all things undefiled, leaving all through death of craving freed, by knowing for myself, whom should I follow? For me there is no teacher, one like me does not exist. In the world with its devas, no one equals me. For I am perfected in the world, the teacher supreme am I. I alone am all awakened, become cool am I, Nibbana attained. To turn the Dhamma wheel, I go to Kasi's city, beating the drum of the deathless, in a world that's become blind. according to what you claim, your reverence, you ought to be victor of the unending, Upaka said. Like me, they are victors indeed, who have won the destruction of the cankers. Vanquished by me are evil things, therefore am I, Upaka, a victor. Again, I have goosebumps reading the Beating the Drum of the Deathless. That's always something that kind of triggers me. Just being here also, just being so close to these places and picturing the Buddha, like this is such a lion's roar that nobody's just kind of able to understand just yet, you know, so like nobody's still like not experienced Dhamma enough to understand what he's talking about. Like he's just kind of out of his brains because he's basically talking about he doesn't have a teacher, which is like almost like profanity at that time or something like that. And it's because the teacher here is even like almost placed higher than God itself, because the teacher is the one who shows the way to God, basically, shows the way to spiritual life, to everything. So the guru is like even more than anything else. So to say that one has discovered all this by himself and doesn't have a teacher is quite next level, I would say, for the Buddha. When this had been said, Upaka, the naked ascetic, having said, "It may be so, your reverence," having shaken his head, went off taking a different road. So there you go. He's not really convinced. And you know that just happens a lot. You know, that's why we have to be careful about the things we say when we experience like amazing things in meditation, you know, and things like that. It's not that everybody's gonna understand, or like can't say like well, of course maybe we wouldn't say it like that, but yeah, even like thinking like about attainments and things like that, I'm thinking you know, sometimes it has the reverse effect on people. So like the Buddha here didn't really gain a follower, that's for sure. So but he told the truth, so yeah. Then the Blessed One, walking on tour, in due course approached Benares, the deer park in Isipatana, the group of 5 monks. The group of 5 monks saw the Blessed One coming in the distance, and seeing him, they agreed amongst themselves, saying, "Your reverences, this recluse Gautama is coming. He lives in abundance. He is wavering in his striving. He has reverted to the life of abundance. He should neither be greeted nor stood up for, nor should his bowl and robe be received. All the same, a seat may be put out. He can sit down if he wants to." So they're not really happy to see him again. But as the Blessed One gradually approached this group of 5 monks, so the group of 5, not adhering to their own agreement, having gone towards the Lord, having received his bowl and robe, one made ready a seat, one brought water for washing the feet, a footstool, a footstand. The Blessed One sat down on the seat made ready, and the Blessed One, while he was sitting down, washed his feet. Further, they addressed the Blessed One by name, and with the epithet of "your reverence." So even when seeing them, his karma was just too strong that they couldn't bear just not actually greeting him. So when this had been said, the Blessed One spoke thus to the group of 5 monks. "Do not, monks, address a truth finder by name, and with the epithet "your reverence." A truth finder, monks, is a perfected one, a fully awakened one. Give here, monks. The deathless has been found. I instruct, I teach Dhamma, going along in accordance with what has been enjoined, having soon realized here and now by your own direct knowledge that supreme goal of the Brahma faring, for the sake of which young men from a family rightly go forth from home into homelessness. You will abide in it. When this had been said, the group of 5 monks spoke thus to the Blessed One. But you, Reverend Gautama, did not come to a state of further men, to the eminence of truly Aryan vision and knowledge, by this conduct, by this course, by this practice of austerities. So how can you now come to a state of a further man, to the eminence of the truly Aryan vision of knowledge, when you live in abundance, are wavering in striving and having reverted to a life of abundance? So basically, how can you break through to awakening if you didn't even break through to awakening while you were almost dead trying, and now you're just eating a little bit, probably like 1 meal a day? and now how could you ever attain awakening? Like, you're just like eating, and you're like, I don't know what else he was doing, but I think that was probably just about it. When this had been said, the Blessed One spoke thus to the group of 5 monks. A truth finder, monks, does not live in abundance. He does not waver in striving. He does not revert to a life of abundance. A truth finder, monks, is a perfected one, a fully awakened one. Give ear, monks. The deathless has been found. I instruct and I teach Dhamma, going along in accordance with what has been enjoined, having soon realized here and now by your own direct knowledge that supreme goal of the Brahma faring, for the sake of which young men of family rightly go forth from the home life to homelessness. You will abide in it. And the second time did the group of 5 monks speak again the same to the Lord. Then the Blessed One said, Do you allow, monks, that I have never spoken to you like this before? And now he's kind of like saying like, okay, I'll just like draw some lines here. You have not, Bhante. A truth finder, monks, is a perfected one, a fully awakened one. Give ear, you will abide in it. And the Lord was able to convince the group of 5 monks. Then the group of 5 monks listened to the Blessed One, gave ear to him, and aroused their minds for profound knowledge. Then the Blessed One addressed the group of 5 monks, saying, These 2 dead ends, monks, should not be followed by one who has gone forth. Which 2? That which is among sense pleasures, addiction to attractive sense pleasures, lo, of the villager, of the average man, un-Aryan, not connected with the goal, and that which is addiction to self-torment, ill, un-Aryan, not connected with the goal. So basically, indulging in engaging the mind and the senses all the time and finding a certain kind of relief from that, but that's actually a double-edged sword. Or self-torturing, basically, which was the tapas that the Jains were practicing at that time. Now, monks, without adopting either of these 2 dead ends, there is a middle course, fully awakened by the truth finder, making for vision, making for knowledge, which conduces to calming, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to Nibbana. And what, monks, is the middle course fully awakened to by the truth finder, making for vision, making for knowledge, which conduces to calming, direct knowledge, to awakening, to Nibbana. and here. This is the beginning of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the turning of the wheel, basically. So he's convinced the ascetics, the 5 ascetics, and he's delivering the first discourse of Dhamma that he will deliver, and which results in that group of 5 to understand the Dhamma for the first time. And this I will be reading from my own translation, which it's a little tricky. Oh, not cooperating. There we go. Monks, by avoiding both these extremes, the truth finder has fully awakened to the middle path, which imparts vision and understanding, which leads to calm and goes beyond knowledge, to complete awakening and nibbana. And what is this middle path? It is this 8-spoke path of the awakened, namely wise understanding, wise attitude, wise speech, wise behavior, wise livelihood, wise practice, wise awareness, and wise meditation. This is the middle path that the truth finder has fully awakened to, which imparts vision and understanding, which leads to calm and goes beyond knowledge, to complete awakening and nibbana. Now, monks, understanding what is troublesome is conducive to awakening. That is, because when we understand what is troublesome, then we can actually get rid of it. Taking birth is troublesome, aging is troublesome, diseases are troublesome, death is troublesome, coming upon undesired things is troublesome, being separated from desired things is troublesome, not getting what one wants is troublesome. In brief, the 5 fabrics of the ego are indeed troublesome. What are the 5 fabrics of the ego, the 5 aggregates? Just to see if you're following.
Being born, birth, illness, and old age, sickness. Yeah.
Yes. That's more like the result of the 5 fabrics, the 5 aggregate, the panchupadana kanda, the skandhas. Yes, the skandhas, the body, perception, feeling, mental activities or formations, and consciousness. So all these, the Buddha is saying, all these are troublesome. So then we learn to calm them down. I need to find myself again. There we go. Then monks, understanding the cause of what is troublesome is conducive to awakening. That is, discontent or thirst, this wanting, which is the very fuel for taking action, propelled by seeking happiness in always wanting, seeking happiness and attachment in trifling material things, that is, wishing for sensory stimulation, wishing for things to happen, and wishing for things not to happen. Or this could be also said as wishing to become someone or to become something in the future, or wishing to not become anything, that this whole thing stops. And he's saying this, these are just agitating the mind. And now the release from that, the flip side of the Four Noble Truths, the upside. Then monks, understanding the release from what is troublesome is conducive to awakening. That is, the complete appeasement of and release from that very discontent. Giving it up, letting it go, releasing it, and unlatching from it. Then monks, understanding the practice which leads to the release from what is troublesome, is conducive to awakening, that is, this eight-spoked path of the awakened, which is wise understanding, wise attitude, wise speech, wise behavior, wise livelihood, wise practice, wise awareness, and wise meditation. When I realized this is troublesome, I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. Vision arose, understanding arose, discernment arose, awareness arose, and clarity arose. And when I realized this truth is to be continually understood, I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. Vision arose, understanding arose, discernment arose, awareness arose, and clarity arose. When I realized this truth is continually understood, now this was acknowledging the truth and then understanding this has to be continuously understood, and now he's seeing that it has been, so now he's gaining quite a lot of deeper understanding here about the first Noble Truth. I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. Then vision arose, understanding arose, discernment arose, awareness arose, and clarity arose. When I realized this is the cause of what is troublesome, I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. When I realized this truth is to be given up, now it changes, it shifts the perspective. Now he's realizing that's the cause, then the cause should be given up. That's what we need to do with it. So suffering, that's what we want to do with it, is move out and away. So then his understanding that, his vision arose and his understanding deepened. When I realized this truth is given up, so to the present moment, now he's understanding it's not in him anymore. It has been given up. And we see the correlation here between the four understandings of the Aryas, the Four Noble Truths, and right effort. How he found these two actually together, because he's explaining, he's going through the Four Noble Truths here, but it's actually right effort. So wise practice. So that's how we came up with that. Because if he didn't see it in the present tense, like fully abandoned in him, then he wouldn't be awakened. When I realized this is the release from what is troublesome, I began to understand the Dhamma unheard before. When I realized this truth is to be experienced. And so that's interesting. So now he sees this is the release from that very suffering, from the cause of the suffering and from the suffering, from the troublesome. And this truth is to be experienced. So we have to experience that. We have to experience the end of it. So we have to experience joy and clarity that comes from mental development. So that's what this sutta is basically pointing to every step of the way. When I realized this truth is experienced, so now he knows, like right now he's experiencing that. I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. Vision arose, understanding arose, discernment arose, awareness arose, and clarity arose. When I realized this is the practice leading to the release of what is troublesome, I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. When I realized this truth should be developed, now it's going even one step further and pointing at the path, and see how the Four Noble Truths are so intimately connected with wise practice. Here is talking about, hey, this is the Fourth Noble Truth, and that's what I love about this sutta, is that it's really together, like the Four Noble Truths, which is the deepest teaching of the Buddha, really, with dependent origination, but dependent origination is in the Four Noble Truths anyways. And also wise practice, which is what we need to do. It's like the practical, down-to-earth instructions. So the Four Noble Truths is just the understanding, but then what do we do? And this sutta actually plugs it all together, where the Buddha puts the practice with the understanding. So when I realized this truth should be developed, then this is the path that we need to develop to actually experience the release from that troublesomeness in the mind. I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. When I realized this truth is developed, so now he's talking about his own awakening, I began to understand a Dhamma unheard before. Vision arose, understanding arose, discernment arose, awareness arose, and clarity arose. So long as my knowledge and direct experience of these four awakened understandings, as they truly are, each turning threefold, in these 12 modes, because there's Four Noble Truths, there are 3 modes of them, three ways, and just realizing what it is, what needs to be done with it, and to see that fully accomplished in himself, basically. So as they truly are, each turning threefold in these 12 modes total, had not become clear, I did not declare having fully awakened with perfect unrivaled knowledge and understanding in this world of devas and maras and brahmas, this generation of samanas and brahmanas with its kings and people. But when my knowledge and direct experience of these four awakened understanding as they truly are, each turning threefold in these 12 modes, finally became very clear and perfected, I declared having fully awakened with perfect unrivaled knowledge and understanding in this world of devas and maras and brahmas, this generation of samanas and brahmanas with its kings and people. Then direct knowledge and experience came. Unshakable is my liberation. This is the final birth. There is no more rebirth from now on. This is what the Awakened One said. Glad at heart, the group of 5 monks rejoiced in his words. And while this speech was given, the flawless, stainless vision of the Dhamma arose in the Venerable Kondanya. He directly saw and understood whatever is of a nature to become, all of it is also of a nature to seize. Once the wheel of Dhamma was set turning by the Buddha, and this is it, this is the wheel turning now because Kondanya has understood. And he is the first one who will start turning the wheel, basically. The earth devas exclaimed that Varanasi in the Deer Park sanctuary at Isipatana, the Awakened One has set rolling the wheel of Dhamma, which cannot be turned back by any samana or brahmana, any deva or mara or brahma or anyone in this world. Then the earth devas, having heard this celestial claim, the devas of the 4 great kings exclaimed the same thing. Then the group of 33 devas, then the Yama devas, the Tusita devas, the Nimmanarati devas, the Paranimita Vasawati devas, and the Brahmic body of devas exclaimed, at Varanasi in Deer Park sanctuary at Isipatana, the Awakened One has set rolling the wheel of Dhamma, which cannot be turned back by any samana or brahmana, any deva or mara or brahma, or anyone in this world. And at that time, and at that moment, in that instant, without delay, the news resounded all the way to the Brahmic plains, and this 10,000 world system shook, trembled, and quaked, and a measureless, illustrious radiance manifested in the world, surpassing even the radiance of the brightest devas. And the Awakened One spoke these inspired verses. Kondanya sees, Kondanya sees. And from then, the Venerable Kondanya came to be known as Kondanya, the one who sees. And so this closes the awakening of the Buddha from one tree to another, experiencing the bliss of liberation. And actually wording for the first time his understanding, his awakening. So I think we have a good picture. And you got to hear a little bit of Thai in the background, so that's good. On top of that. Yeah. Yeah, I just...
The three Bhante, is it like the Buddha has the attainment and then the fruit?
The three?
Yes.
Oh.
Because there's 12.
Yes.
Each of the four is broken in 3, and so is it the attainment and then doing the work and then having the fruit.
So basically it's, first of all, it's recognizing what the actual truth is at the very beginning, whether it's, hey, this is troublesome, or this is the cause of what is troublesome. That's just like the acknowledgement, like just figuring out just that. And then the second mode is what to do with that, what to do about it. It's like there's a problem and then there's a solution kind of thing, or there's like, this is suffering, or like this is troublesome. This should be continually understood. Like this should be continually, like this template should be continually applied, basically, to see. And for us in the practice, in direct meditation practice, it's really awareness of body, you know, how to stay like always very conscious of how body reacts to things. And when we experience these the tension, we directly know. That's how we can continually know this. So if as soon as there's tension, we can know this is troublesome. And then of course it goes deeper than that. But and then the third one was basically for him. So remember at the beginning he said, as long as I did not see these things like this, in this complete way, in these 3 modes, each completely 12, I didn't claim to be awakened, basically. So he knew about these things and he kind of worked with it, but he, as long as, and that's the third mode, as long as he did not see the completion of that in himself, he didn't declare that he was awake. So basically, first is to acknowledge, to recognize what that truth is. Second is to, okay, what do we do with this? What to do? The first one is to be continually aware of it. The second one is to actually give it up, to give up the cause. The third one is to experience the release. So, because the third noble truth is the release or the cessation of what is troublesome. So, one has to experience that. So that's what to do with that truth. And then the fourth noble truth is the path, and that needs to be developed. And then the third mode for each of those is seeing that this was fully, like perfectly done by him, basically. So, and then he said, I'm awake. Does that answer?
Yes, I was just seeing if there was a comparison between that and the when somebody attains a certain understanding, a certain level, and certain ones of the aggregates fall away, and that then they have the attainment, but they don't necessarily have the fruit of it yet, because there's that place where they still need to, and so I just wondered if that was kind of a another tie-in, like another layer that was part of what Buddha was saying that maybe I have about.
So basically, Buddhas, they have different, their awakening is different. Like for us, he's declared like 4 levels of awakening, basically. But for Buddhas, there's no like stream entry, there's no, because he's the first one to find it. So he has to completely figure it out on his own. So he doesn't get to hear the Dhamma and become a stream enterer, for example. So these levels of path and fruition, for him, they don't work because he's the first one. So for him, there's like one path and one fruition. is basically being a bodhisattva and then being a Buddha, and that's it.
But if you explain what a passe Buddha is, it might help Marty into understanding that also.
Like
Pachika Buddha.
the Pachika Buddha.
Pachika.
Yes, Pachika
Yeah.
Buddha. Yes. Well, it's just that there's different kinds of Buddhas, and a Buddha that can actually teach. Like they Buddhas are all people that understand and break through to full awakening on their own. So without the help of another Buddha, for example. But Pachika Buddhas, they can only do it for themselves. They cannot teach. They only know enough for themselves, basically. So that they'll break through to awakening, but they won't know how to teach it. Or they might, but it's not going to be very elaborate. It's going to be like, yeah, just do it. And that's not like super helpful. So, and then there's some Buddhas which do the same thing, but for them it takes a lot longer. That's what they say anyways, that's what the texts say. It takes eons and eons and eons of purification, and at some point they break through to understanding by themselves, and they have so much knowledge, they have so much wisdom accumulated because of what they've done, that when they awaken, they've tried so many things that they know exactly how everything works, basically. So they're able to teach it really well, and they know it in and out, kind of thing. So that's the difference between Pachika Buddha and a Samma Sambuddha. So, and there is even differences inside the different Buddhas. Even Samma Sambuddhas were not all the same. At the beginning of the Patimokkha, for example, the Venerable Mahamoggallana or Venerable Sariputta asked Bhante, Bhagavan, why is there some Buddhas that their sasana, their dispensation lasted very shortly and some lasted very long? And the Buddha says, well, those who didn't put down the Vinaya, didn't put down any Patimokkha, their teaching did not last very long. It didn't endure because there is nothing tying the teaching together. So it just, everybody kind of did their own thing, and it got lost, basically. It got tainted really quickly, and nothing to hold it together. But in that definition, that means that it's quite different from one sasana to another. And our Buddha is said, Gautama Buddha is supposed to be a wisdom Buddha. So our Buddha is even a special Buddha for all Buddhas, because he was very wise. He did lay down a very good Vinaya, Patimokkha, and that's why we have this 2,600 years after. I mean, this is the reason why the teaching is still alive. It's been transformed in many ways, but we still can access the core of it. So that's just amazing. And and just the way that that he acted. Not all Buddhas did that. Like some Buddha would just stay in the forest and stay with like tigers and really not conducive places for like lay people, for example, to go and learn the Dhamma, and even for monks, it was scary. So, but some of them were like really kind of. It reminds me of Dzogchen kind of thing, like really intense Himalayan practice, like cutting through, like all the fetters kind of thing. But so even the Buddhas are different. So, yeah. But this story is quite. I get goosebumps every time I read it. When I first stumbled upon it in the Mahavagga, I was just so impressed by how beautiful that story is, and him going to beat the drum of the deathless, and like the generation that's become blind, and like so much gratitude. It's just so much gratitude, and that person was definitely amazing. So so I hope that was enjoyable. Give you a little bit.
It's so good to hear the Dhamma Chakravartin Sutta once again.
Yes. Yes, very good. Well, maybe we can share some merits, and then we can go our ways. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbeti panino, idam me punyang sabbe satta anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya, akasatta cha bhumatta, devanaga mahiddhika, punyang tang anumoditva, chirang rakhantu sambuddha sasanam. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share these merits of ours. May they long protect the Buddha Sasana. Sadhu, sadhu. Well, I wish you all the best. It was really good to see you all. So lovely.
Likewise, Bhante.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, let's keep up to date. Let's see what everyone is doing. Slowly, we're going to start preparing for Canada pretty soon over here. So I think there will be more communications. And so, very good. Enjoy life.
So Bhante, we are, as soon as you know when you are coming to Bangalore, please let us know.
Oh, yes.
Also plan accordingly.
Oh, very good. That would be nice to catch you on the tour.
Yes, Bhante.
Yes, very good. Very good. Teruvan Saranai,
Nice
take care. Say hi to all of your family. So yes. Okay.
Bye, Marty.
Bye,
Teruvan Saranai.
Thank you.